My name is Maya, and for 15 years, I was more than an executive assistant. I was a ghost. I was the shadow that ran the life of Elias Thorne, a titan of the shipping industry worth over $250 million. I managed his dialysis appointments. I managed his mistresses. I managed the offshore shell companies that kept his taxes at zero. I was his confidant, his scheduler, and the only person on earth who knew the code to his safe. Elias wasn't a good man, but he was practical. He always told me, loyalty, Maya, is the only currency I trust. When I'm gone, you won't just be taken care of. You will be wealthy beyond your wildest imagination. He made me feel like an equal partner in his empire. When Elias passed away from a sudden stroke last month, I didn't cry for him, but I cried for the life I thought I had earned. I was 45, had no social life, no family of my own, and 15 years of my prime invested in the Thorne legacy. I arrived at the reading of the will dressed in respectful black. Elias's actual children, 3 trust fund monsters named Julian, Chloe, and Sebastian, were also there, smirking and already arguing about who got the penthouse in Aspen. They had barely seen their father in 5 years, only calling when they needed a gambling debt erased or a social scandal buried. I had done the burying. The lawyer began reading. The yachts to Julian. The primary estate to Chloe. The vineyards to Sebastian. The numbers were staggering. Then, the final clause. And to my loyal assistant, Maya Chen, who has given me 15 years of her tireless service. I took a deep breath. This was it. I bequeathed the sum of $5,000 to assist with her transition to new employment, and my deepest thanks. Silence. The room went cold. Then Julian laughed. A sharp, cruel sound. $5,000, Maya. Well, I guess Dad finally figured out what you were really worth. Chloe and Sebastian joined in, their faces twisted in entitled glee. I'm going to need that safe code before you leave today, sweetheart, Julian added. And your keys to the town home. Elias hadn't just broken his promise. He had used me until his final breath and then threw me away like a disposable razor. He had left my 15-year career to the same value as a down payment on one of his children's handbags. But they forgot one crucial detail. Elias was practical, but he was also paranoid. I left the $5,000 check on the table and walked out without a word. I didn't hand over the safe code. I didn't hand over the keys. 2 weeks later, the chaos began. The Thorne children tried to sell the primary estate. They couldn't. The title was held by a parent company, Aegis Holdings Limited. When they tried to access Elias's primary bank accounts, they were flagged for suspicious activity. You see, Elias hadn't just used shell companies for taxes. He had used them to hide his money from his own family. He didn't trust his children with his wealth. He had spread his assets across 30 different legal entities in 4 different tax havens. And who had set up every single one of those entities? Me. I held the passwords. I held the encryption keys. I held the digital signatures. In Elias's mind, my loyalty meant he could trust me to hide his money for him. He never considered that my loyalty died the moment the lawyer read that final clause. The safe in his office. It wasn't the main safe. It just contained copies of documents. The real money was digitized and encrypted on a physical server hidden in a remote storage unit that I paid for. I waited until the Thorne children were truly desperate, when the foreclosure notices started hitting Elias's property and Julian's credit cards were cut off. They were begging their lawyers, but the lawyers had no answers. Then I sent an anonymous email to the IRS, the European Banking Authority, and a choice few regulatory bodies in the Cayman Islands. It contained 15 years of detailed logs of systematic tax evasion, money laundering, and financial fraud committed by Elias Thorne. I didn't steal the money. I just unleashed the truth. The government didn't just freeze the assets, they seized everything. Accounts, yachts, houses, vineyards, all of it became the property of the state pending investigation. Julian, Chloe, and Sebastian didn't just lose their inheritance. They were destitute. Their entire lives were built on a house of cards that I had spent 15 years maintaining, And now I had pulled the bottom card. They are currently being investigated as beneficiaries of a multi-decade financial crime. As for me, I'm currently on a beach in a country with no extradition treaty. Before I unleashed the truth, I made one final transfer of my own. It wasn't Elias's money, per se. It was a 15-year retroactive bonus, with a penalty clause for emotional distress and breach of verbal contract. It was exactly enough to retire comfortably. I didn't get my inheritance, but I finally got paid. And the ledger is closed. The 3 Thorne siblings didn't come to my office to apologize. They came to demand. Julian threw a stack of frozen credit card statements on my desk, his face a blotchy red. Fix this, Maya. I know you're behind the blocks. Tell the bank there's been a mistake or I'll have you blacklisted from every firm in the city. I didn't even look up from my laptop. I just hit enter on a final encrypted file transfer. Julian, I said, my voice as cold as a morgue slab, I was never on your payroll. I was on your father's. And according to his final wishes, my services ended the moment he was buried. As for blacklisting me, you'd need a functioning bank account to hire the lawyers to do that. And from what I can see, you currently have a negative balance. Chloe stepped forward, her voice trembling. But the house, the estate, it's ours. You can't just let the government take it. The government isn't taking your house, Chloe, I replied, standing up and grabbing my coat. They are seizing the proceeds of a 15-year criminal enterprise. If you want someone to blame, look at the man who loved his secrets more than his children. He thought I was his vault. He forgot that vaults can be opened from the inside. I walked past them, the sound of my heels clicking on the marble floor the only noise in the room. As I reached the elevator, I turned back one last time. By the way, Julian, the $5,000 check Elias left me, I didn't cash it. I used it to pay for the first month's storage on the server that's currently feeding the IRS everything they need. Consider it my final contribution to the family legacy. The elevator doors closed on their stunned, silent faces. I was finally free. If you found this story of corporate chess and calculated payback satisfying, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Revenge Echoes. We don't just tell stories here, we celebrate the art of the long game. Don't let people mistake your loyalty for weakness. Join our community of subscribers who know that the best revenge is a life well lived and a ledger perfectly balanced. Comment below. If you were Maya, would you have kept the money for yourself or turned them into the authorities? Let's discuss.